Hello, this is Fanfiction Spot coming with another part of What If Naruto Had a Gaming System or Solo Leveling. Please like and subscribe, and without any delay let's get started. Quest Announcement, Gamer Ability / Notification. Chapter 5, Field Dungeon. Harano Clan Area, Clan Leader Family Home. Have a seat, Sakura. Mabuki directed her daughter as they entered their living room. We have much to talk about. Sakura looked curiously at her mother as she sat down and observed Mabuki bustling around the living room / kitchen that made up their house. Most people would expect a clan head's house to be ostentatious and grand, but the Harano clan had only been on the rise in the last 20 years, so they had kept much of their humble origins. Oh, there was a fancy house for formal dining and parties, but the Harano clan kept a regular family atmosphere for the most part, which Sakura was quite glad about. "Dear, what's the problem?" A male voice called as Sakura's father, Harano Kaizashi, walked into the room. With dull pink hair cut into the shape of a cherry blossom, it was obvious where his daughter inherited her bright pink hair from. The Harano clan came this close to becoming ruined because of that foolish girl Isuka. Mabuki told him, her voice shaking from stress and anger, "Sit down with Sakura and I'll fill you in." Kaizashi looked over at Sakura and smiled. "How are you doing, little blossom?" he asked. "Ota-san." Sakura groaned at her father's nickname for her, coined by him when she was only 2. He chuckled as he sat next to her and ruffled her hair, making Sakura pout at being treated like a kid. "All right then," he said, becoming serious as he turned to his wife. "What has Isuka done now?" Mabuki launched into a blow-by-blow account of the various sins and crimes of one Harano Isuka, with Sakura chiming in with the occasional detail that her mother had either neglected to mention or forgotten about in her agitation. "That stupid girl," Kaizashi said in dismay as he shook his head slowly. "If young Naruto hadn't offered that compromise, the shinobi clans would have torn us to pieces financially." "Why? Why would the shinobi clans interfere?" Sakura asked curiously. "This isn't confirmed, but there have been rumors that Uzumaki Naruto isn't just named in honor of the extinct Uzumaki clan, but is an actual blood member of the Uzumaki clan." Mabuki replied. "There was an Uzumaki clan?" Sakura asked in surprise. "I've read my history books from cover to cover, and there isn't a single mention of them, ever." Kaizashi frowned. "That is odd. Well, the Shodaime Hokage, Senjo Hashirama, married a member of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Mito, in order to cement an alliance between Konohagakure and Uzushiogakure, the home village of the Uzumaki clan. The spiral symbol of the Uzumaki clan was adopted into the symbol of Konoha and is worn by Chunin and Jonin level ninja." Mabuki added, "The loyalty of the Uzumaki was legendary, just as legendary as their skills at the art of Funjutsu. Even now, many years after the destruction of Uzushiogakure, their inability to betray either family or an ally is spoken of in awe. Because of their loyalty, they came to our aid during the First Great Shinobi War without needing to be asked." Kaizashi continued, "They aided all of the shinobi clans in one way or another, which leads us to why Isuka would have ruined us if Naruto-san had not offered this deal. The clan shinobi of Konoha owes the Uzumaki much, and regretted being unable to aid them during the surprise attack that destroyed them, so they do what they can to aid Naruto-san if something like what Isuka did happens. Several high-ranking civilians have found that their business ventures were decidedly shaky without support from the major clans and were vulnerable due to clan shinobi refusing to take missions to guard or escort their properties." Mabuki said quietly, "We can thank all our ancestors that the boy still has a crush on you, otherwise we would have gone the same route. He might not like me like that anymore." Sakura admitted sadly, "Usually he asks me out at least once a day, but he hasn't asked me out in about 2 days." Her parents exchanged looks before turning back to her. "Sakura, while I know you would prefer not to be the sole bearer of the conditions Naruto-san has determined, the fact remains that you are," Kaizashi said carefully. "As your father, I must ask you to bear with it until you graduate." "Okay, Ota-san." Sakura nodded before sighing. "I guess I'd better put together some studying materials for tomorrow. Naruto's grades are only slightly better than Inuzuka Kibis." Kaizashi waited until the sound of Sakura's footsteps had faded away before turning to his wife and saying quietly, "She looked quite sad at the thought of not being pursued by the boy anymore. He strokes her ego and assures her that she's attractive." Mabuki replied quietly, "From what I hear, the Uchiha boy ignores practically everyone, especially his fangirls, to the point of rudeness. Combined with Sakura's insecurity towards her physical appearance, it's of little surprise that she is insecure without some way of affirming that she is pretty. I dislike the sound of Uchiha Sasuke." Kaizashi said with a frown. "Sakura deserves someone who will treat her like a princess, not like an inconvenience. To be fair to the boy, he has an entire academy full of girls, civilian, and shinobi, throwing themselves at him." Mabuki pointed out, "That would try the patience of a stone, let alone a pre-adolescent boy who had his entire clan massacred by his elder brother." I know, but that kind of excuse can't hold out for everything." Kaizushi said slightly impatiently. Most people would try and reach out, create new bonds to replace those they had lost, at least after a while. Suzuki? He rejects bonds with others, from everything Sakura has told me, plus what little I've seen of the boy myself, because he fears that those bonds will be used against him or taken from him like his brother did to his parents. He has little to nothing to hold him here. Mabuki didn't question her husband's conclusion. He was a retired lifetime genin, who had charmed his way into her heart with his quick and ready humor and devotion to her. When Sakura had been born, he had retired from active duty. He had been missed because of his skill at reading people. While not as sharp as a fully trained member of Ambutiani, he could make a snap judgment about someone, which usually turned out to be right for one reason or another. Sakura thinks that she can break through to him. Mabuki said quietly. She can't. Kaizushi shook his head. The boy has to make the first step himself, otherwise he will never truly recover. True. Mabuki sighed. What do you think about Sakura tutoring Naruto-san? I knew Yondaime-sama. Kaizushi said quietly. If he believed his work would hold against that monster, then I see no reason to be worried. Besides, now that Sakura can't diet, she'll finally be able to train properly. I owe Naruto-san for that if nothing else. Mabuki nodded slightly. Her husband had tried to convince Sakura about eating properly, but she had been more stubborn about that than she had been about anything else. Well, at least now that she was legally barred from cutting back on the amount of food she ate, it was a non-issue now. We will just have to wait and see. Mabuki said as she stood up to get dinner ready. The next day, lunchtime. Final year classroom, Kanahagakuer Shinobi Academy. Hey for it. Ino called as she slid onto the seat next to Sakura, who was eating a bento. Given up on dieting? Suzuki-kun's all mine then. Pig. Sakura growled. I've been forbidden to diet by Naruto Baka. This made the platinum blonde girl blink. Why the heck should you give a crap what Naruto tells you to do? Sakura sighed. Because, pig, one of my clan's women has been harassing Naruto for 5 years, vandalizing his property and stuff. She was caught a few days ago and Naruto was given the choice of what punishment the Harano clan was to be given yesterday. And, he banned you from dieting? Ino asked in confusion. No, he made me his tutor until graduation and banned me from dieting. Sakura growled before finishing the bento. Pretty light punishment. Ino commented. Daddy's told me that one clan harassing another has serious consequences most of the time. Cousin Isuka was the only member of our clan who had anything to do with it. Sakura replied. None of the rest of us had any idea what she was up to, which was why Hokage-sama didn't add any additional punishments on the clan, at Naruto Baka's insistence. He has it bad for you, Forrid. The Yamanaka heiress commented. You should snap him up while I take Suzuki-kun. TCH. Yeah right, Ino pig. Sakura snorted. Shan-naro? Like I'm gonna let you take Suzuki-kun from me, pig. Cha, Sakura's inner personality roared defiantly. Sitting a few rows behind them, one Hyuga Hinata glared at the back of Sakura's head. She had a crush the size of Hinokuni on Naruto and would give anything to have him be even half as attentive to her as he was to Sakura, and that pink-haired hussy was scorning him? One day, the shy girl vowed, one day, I will be brave enough to stand by Naruto-kun's side as he becomes Hokage, and you too will gnash your teeth at the lost opportunity. Yes, she was shy, but she was also more than slightly contemptuous of fangirl Kunoichi. Her mother hadn't been a shinobi, but she had spoken to Hinata of how those who never took their duties and training as Kunoichi seriously caused the deaths of their teammates. Hinata was jerked from her thoughts as she spotted her blonde-haired crush walking back into the classroom, making her face flush red as she drank in his new look. He had been good-looking in the orange jumpsuit, but looked even better in his new outfit of black shirts and black/gray trousers. Naruto-kun. She whispered as she looked at him. With Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto was unsure what to think at this point. The previous day, he had been able to help his crush, Sakura, by deflecting most of the backlash of her cousin's actions and stopping her from dieting. Okay, so he had also manipulated things so he could spend more time with her and raise his grades, but hey, he needed all the advantages he could to get Sakura-chan as his girlfriend. No way did he want to be friend-zoned. The main problem was that he had scoured the guide from top to bottom and he couldn't find anything to do with romance. Typical really. The guide to living one's life as a video game and they skip one of the most important things? Still, he supposed there wasn't really much point at this time. His relationship with Sakura was only a few hundred points short of neutral, so maybe it was waiting for him to move his reputation with Sakura-chan to at least friendly status, he whispered, bringing up the screen that displayed his stats. Name, Uzumaki Naruto. Class, the gamer. Level, 5 next level, 98%. Title, Academy Student, plus 25% EXP to LV10. Age, 12. HP, 700/700, CP, 700/700, STR, 18, -5, STA, 38, -5, plus 10, DEX, 14, -5, INT, 15, plus 5, WIS, 15. Luck? Looking at his stats, Naruto had to wince. He was heavily biased towards his STA. How he managed to get such a high stamina is beyond his comprehension, but it would be helpful for training in the future. His next target for training, Naruto decided, would be his dex. He had been neglecting it as of late, and it would never do to become unbalanced. Besides of which, it would let him level up his Shurikenjutsu and Hiko Yoshin fast draw technique skills. Most people dismissed Shurikenjutsu as merely being useful for distraction, but Naruto wasn't too sure about that. His Jiji had told him about a shuriken clone technique he had invented that he used to literally shred his enemies to pieces, so the blonde boy was certain that his skill with thrown weapons shouldn't be neglected. As lunchtime ended and Iruka-sensei started yet another boring lecture, this time about the Second Great Shinobi War, Naruto kept one ear open while allowing the rest of his mind to wander. He was planning what to serve Sakura-chan when she came over to tutor him after the academy was over when he heard his name called. "Naruto, could you tell the class what the Nidaime Hokage's ninjutsu specialty was?" Mizuki called, a barely hidden sneer on his face. Unfortunately, for Mizuki, Naruto had studied up on the abilities of the four Hokage, so this question was easy for him. Nidaime-sama specialized in using Sudden ninjutsu. Naruto replied with a smirk. Very good. Mizuki said, surprised at the dead last's knowledge. Now, what was his favorite weapon? The Raijin no Ken, Thunder God's sword. Naruto answered promptly. Well done, Naruto. Iruka nodded. Next, Koji. What was Sandaime-sama's age when he became Hokage for the first time? Naruto automatically tuned out the rotund boy's response as he turned his attention to the window that had popped up as he had answered the last question. You have proven your knowledge? +1 WIS? He had to smirk slightly as he closed the window. The boredom of book learning hadn't prevented him from memorizing all of the special traits and equipment of the previous leaders of the village. Senju Hashirama's Mokiton, wood style, was fairly obvious, because he created the enormous forest around Konohagakure and even quite a few of the initial housing in the village proper, most of which still stood today. Senju Tobirama was infamous for possessing a frighteningly high water affinity, and his Kenjutsu skills, combined with the Raijin no Ken, was very formidable. His Jiji, Sarutobi Hiruzen, didn't possess a Kekkai Genkai like the Shodaime, nor did he have a specialty ninjutsu skill set like the Nidaime. What the Sandaime possessed was just as great, however, his sharp and strategic mind, as well as a determination to do what was best for the village. Legendary for mastering all non-Kekkai Genkai ninjutsu in Konoha, he was honored with the title of the Sandaime Kami no Shinobi, third god of shinobi. The Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, had only had his title for less than a decade before the day of the Kyuubi, but his exploits on the battlefield during the Third Great Shinobi War were the stuff of legends, slaying over 200 Uegakure shinobi using his two jutsu, the Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God, and the Raiznon, Spiraling Sphere, earning him the title of Konoha no Kiro Senko, Yellow Flash of the Leaf. Not much information was actually readily available about the Yondaime for some reason. His sacrificial attack that defeated the giant fox demon was utterly unknown, but had raised the man to nigh godhood in Konoha. This made the dearth of information regarding the man and his jutsu strange, to say the least. Naruto had no idea what the Hiraishin or Raiznon were or what they did, and the only thing that was known about the man who had created them was that he had been the most talented prodigy in the history of Konohagakure. A couple of windows popped up, the first making Naruto's eye twitch. By organizing information neatly in your mind, you gain +1 int. Whoever Gaia is, he or she is definitely making fun of my intelligence. Naruto thought sourly before closing that window and reading the next one. Quest created. The fourth principle, there is not much information available about the legendary fourth Hokage, which you find irritating. Investigate and discover the details of at least one of the Yondaime's jutsu, as well as at least one detail about the man himself. Quest completion reward, +600 EXP, 1 random jutsu scroll, +250 reputation with. Quest failure, +200 EXP. Accept. Y/N. Naruto frowned as he read the quest description. It was odd that the quests that were created were so random. None of them seemed to have a unifying theme other than Naruto go do this and you'll get this, this, and this. What the hell? Why not? Naruto hit the Y button, closing the window. He did want to know more about his hero, the Yondaime, so this was a quest he would gladly take. The question was, where to look? The library was out, because the crabby old bat that was in charge of the place hated him and tossed him out as soon as he tried to walk in. The Academy sensei were out as well, even Iruka sensei, as they clammed up as soon as he asked about the yondaime for some reason. Weird people. This left only one source of information regarding the yondaime that Naruto knew was unbiased regarding him, as well as highly likely to know about the jutsu and the man himself, his Jiji. He'd go and pay the man a visit after he'd finished his tutoring session with Sakura-chan. It was the only thing to do. After classes end. Naruto's apartment building. This is your new apartment building? Sakura asked dubiously. She obviously wasn't very impressed with it, judging by the expression on her face. Yeah, it's owned by Jiji. Naruto replied nonchalantly, I'm a high-profile target for vandalism, so the rest of the landlords refused to consider renting one of their places out to me, so Jiji bought this building for me. This was the cover story that he had been told to use when explaining the Hokage letting him use the former Umbu HQ entrance to those below the rank of Jonin. Naruto, show the Hokage some respect. Sakura scolded him as they entered the building. He is the leader of the village after all. You sound like Iruka-sensei. Naruto grumbled, I'll tell you the same thing I told him. I knew him as the man with the funny hat before I knew him as the Hokage. He's the closest thing I have to family, Sakura-chan. The pink's expression softened. Sorry. Most people in our class aren't orphans, so I keep forgetting. Naruto nodded. Most of Sakura's fellow civilian-born students in their class were either adopted or unaffected by the Kyuubi's attack 12 years previously. Most of the orphans had been older than them, like Higurashi Tenten. It's okay, Sakura-chan, just be more careful in future, he said with a smile. Fair enough. Sakura nodded, before she looked around the hall they were walking through. Ugh, this place needs a good clean. It's filthy. My apartment's clean as a whistle. Naruto told her, I'm planning on cleaning up the rest of the building once I get settled in. Jiji isn't charging me rent, so the least I can do is clean the place up and maintain it. Sakura was silent as they approached his room. Naruto couldn't even begin to guess what she was thinking about. Mentally shrugging, he led his crush into his home. Ojamashimasu. Sakura muttered as she entered Naruto's house for the first time. Peering around, she made an odd humming noise as she took in the rooms. I'm surprised that the place isn't full of empty ramen packets. She commented. Oi, it's only been a day since I moved in. Naruto grumbled good-naturedly, give me some time and it will be a mess. Oh no you don't. Sakura countered, putting her hands on her hips and glaring at the blonde boy purposefully. I will not be subjected to a mess every time I come over. Either you keep this place spick and span, or you come over to my house to study. Pick. I was joking, Sakura-chan. Naruto sighed, I couldn't keep my last place clean, because people kept breaking in and messing it up, so I'm out of practice with the whole tidying up business. I will do my best though. Do you want a drink? Sure. Sakura nodded, what do you have? Water, iced tea, barley tea, fruit juice, and sencha. Naruto recited. Iced tea please. Sakura said as she sat at the table. Naruto fetched a pair of glasses and a new bottle of iced tea from the fridge and sat down opposite her, pouring them both a generous glassful of iced tea. Cheers. Naruto said as he sipped the drink. He hadn't tried iced tea before and found it odd, but pleasant. Now, what exactly do you need help with? Sakura asked after sipping at her drink as well. I know your written test scores are slightly higher than Kiba's. I've memorized everything in the textbooks to do with the Hokage. Naruto replied, the rest, I don't really see the point of knowing it. The code of shinobi conduct has been broken so many times that it's held together with duct tape and it's unrealistic. As for the history of the elemental nations, interesting, but again, not something I can see as being absolutely vital to being a shinobi. What do you mean about the code? Sakura asked. Every shinobi abides by it. Well, take the rule about showing no emotions. Naruto said thoughtfully, I mean, even shinobi are human, right? So saying we have to be emotionless golems is a bit much. All we have to do is keep our emotions from affecting us while we're on missions, and by missions, I mean ones that are C rank and above, not D ranks. Sakura was taken aback by the thought that the class dobe had put into something she had taken as an absolute. She quickly rallied however. I'll give you that one Naruto, but you still have to learn the rules in order to pass the written section of the Genin exam. Sakura reminded him, the history section is intertwined with the Hokage, so a little brushing up on the battles they were involved in should help you there as well. She looked around for a moment before asking, can I use your bathroom first? Second door on the right once you leave the living room. Naruto told her. As she headed out, Naruto whispered, observe, prompting a window to appear with her details on it, which Naruto quickly scanned. Name, Haruno Sakura. Class, Brainiac. Level, 7 next level, 55.25. Title, Academy Student, plus 25% EXP to LV10. Age, 12. HP, 550/550. CP, 250/250, STR, 10, -5, STA, 10, -5, Dex, 20, -5, Int, 45, WIS, 40, Luck, 25. Status, Uchiha Fangirl, -25% to all EXP gain, -10% to teamwork, bookworm, plus 10% int per level, plus 25% EXP for reading textbooks, absolute chakra control, -50% CP cost for all jutsu, civilian ancestry, 25 HP and camp less added during level up. Perks, secondary personality, eidetic memory, honor student, flaws, malnourished, fangirl, mercurial temper, insecurity, low stamina. Harano Sakura is the clan heiress of the Harano clan, a rising power among the civilian clans of Konohagakure. Although she possesses far more potential than the average civilian genin candidate, she squanders all this potential by chasing after the last Uchiha as one of his rabid fangirls. Dear Kami, Naruto muttered as he took in Sakura's stats. She had barely any STR or STA, although her int and WIS were definitely very impressive. Her dex and luck were so-so. The statuses were a mix of good and bad, but the only one that had to go was the Uchiha fangirl status. The civilian ancestry status was something she had been born with, so he doubted anything could be done about that. The other two were definitely positive ones that he wasn't going to mess with. Frowning, Naruto touched the perk labeled Secondary Personality, prompting another window to pop up. Secondary Personality. You possess a secondary personality as a result of repressing your true feelings over a number of years. While this inner version of yourself often gives you bad advice, it also acts as the perfect defense against the mind-walking skills of the Yamanaka clan, as well as other mind-reading jutsu. Passively increases the chance of bad judgment calls by 20%. Passively increases resistance against genjutsu by 10%. Actively increases resistance against any mind-reading skill by 75%. This perk can be completely removed by fully accepting all of your repressed feelings, or partially removed by accepting a part of them. Naruto read the description of the perk with increasing incredulity. Sakura? Repressing her feelings? She certainly never had any trouble expressing when he had irritated her beyond her tolerance. Closing that window, he moved to the next one. Eidetic memory. You possess a very sharp memory, able to recall something after seeing it only briefly. While not as good as a photographic memory, it is still an amazing benefit to learning. Passively adds 10% extra EXP from learning from books or scrolls. Whenever you learn a skill from a scroll, you start off with 20% EXP in that skill. This perk can be lost if you receive critical brain damage. Sounds like Sakura-chan alright. Naruto muttered to himself, moving to the next one. Honor student. You are the teacher's favorite student due to your dedication to learning, perfect attendance and lack of rule breaking while in school hours. While enrolled in school, you gain an additional 10% EXP boost. As long as you maintain your good conduct and keep this perk, you are guaranteed to be top kunoichi. This perk is automatically lost after being assigned to a genin team after graduation. It can also be lost before then by either constantly rule breaking for a month, being absent without cause for a month straight, or your grades dropping by a significant amount in a short period of time. Naruto found himself nodding, right up until he read the bit about Sakura definitely becoming top kunoichi. This wasn't entirely unexpected, but he doubted Sakura would actually do any training if she got onto the team's team as long as she had the Uchiha fangirl status. While he had started her down the path of being a real kunoichi rather than a fangirl kunoichi, it evidently hadn't been enough to break her of fangirling over the team. If he wanted to make sure she had a good chance of surviving to the rank of Chunin, he'd have to get rid of both the Uchiha fangirl status and the fangirl flaw. Hearing Sakura coming back, Naruto hurriedly closed the windows, but resolved to use his observe skill on her again so he could finish reading her stat page. Observe has leveled up. Ignoring the new window, Naruto beamed at Sakura as she came back into the living room. Ready to get started, Sakura-chan? He asked with a gesture at the books he had piled to one side of the table in preparation for the study session. We might as well. The Pinkett side, let's start with history today, as that seems to be an area that at least interests you somewhat. The next 2 hours were somewhat awkward for the two preteens, as this was the first time they had spent any time with each other without having their classmates around them. Sakura got by it by focusing on the material at hand, as well as thinking up ways to draw Naruto's interest to the subject matter by drawing his attention to the famous historical battles that the Hokage were involved in first, then adding in background information. It worked. Go figure that one. As he saw Sakura off with a wave and a smile, Naruto thought that these lessons might not be such a bad idea. His int and WIS had both gone up by 1 already, and that was just from the sheer volume of material he had read through. Just thinking about it made his brain throb from information overload. Deciding to stop thinking deep thoughts for the moment, Naruto decided to go read the observe data he had floating in front of him from using observe on Sakura before she turned the corner. Retreating to the living room, he pressed the flaw called Fangirl, as he knew exactly what malnourished was doing to her. Fangirl. You are obsessed with an individual to the point that you think of little else but that person, driving your friends away and making the subject of your crush/obsession dislike you. A 10% reduction to teamwork. For every fangirl action taken in front of the subject of your crush, your reputation with that person is lowered by 50. This flaw can be lost by facing the truth of who the subject of your obsession is and what they are really like. Well, this explains why she stopped being friends with Ino. Naruto muttered aloud. He resolved to scan Ino and Sasuke the next day so he could get an accurate read of what the hell was going on with the three of them, before closing the second window and opening another. Mercurial temper. You are hot-headed with a hair-trigger temper. Either about certain things only or just in general. This makes people wary of you and reduces the likelihood of befriending them. Increased chance of losing your temper by 25%. Every instance of losing your temper will reduce your reputation with the person in question by 10. Reduces teamwork by 5%. This flaw can be removed by gaining control over your temper. Naruto had to wince slightly at this. He had been on the receiving end of Sakura's temper quite a bit over the last year or so it puzzled him as to why his reputation with her was as high as it was. Could all this only have started being applied to everyone when he received his gamer ability? Feeling his headache return, the blonde boy filed that under things to consider later and moved on to the next flaw, insecurity. You have, as a result of bullying, a rather low sense of self-esteem. There is at least one thing about yourself that you are overly self-conscious about and you cover this up with a confident front. It also leaves you more vulnerable to peer pressure and going along with the crowd. Reduces, by 25%. Raises chances of being swept up in the latest fads by 35%. Raises chance of fancying the most popular boy around by 30%. Raises chance of losing temper when confronted by something you dislike about yourself by 25%. This flaw can be removed by gaining confidence in yourself, your abilities and your appearance. What the hell? Another mysterious stat. Naruto complained aloud, come on. Throw me a bone here. Grumbling to himself, he decided to do some research on these stats. Koji would know something about them, as he had been into them last year, although Naruto couldn't quite recall what the game had been called. Nodding to himself at his plan, Naruto pressed the last flaw, low stamina. Even for a civilian, you have low stamina. Running is hard work for you and you rarely do more than the minimum required exercise during physical education portions of your schooling. Your tiredness gauge fills up quicker. You receive 25 less HP per level up than normal. This flaw can be removed by training to increase your stamina to an acceptable level, the exact number depending on your occupation. For further information, please consult the guide under Stats for your world. This might be a problem. Naruto conceded glumly. Sakura hated getting hot and sweaty in case it made Sasuke hate her. Great. Just great. Not only would he have to first cure her insecurity and then break her fangirl flaw and stat, he'd have to somehow make her train herself up to be half decent in combat. When it rains, it pours. Closing the windows, Naruto was lost in though for a moment before he remembered he had to go to the Hokage's office to see his Jiji. Grabbing his goggles, Naruto beat feet toward the tower. He had questions to ask. Hokage's office. Sarutobi was fighting through paperwork when Naruto sauntered into the room. Glad to have an excuse to get away, at least temporarily, from his mortal enemy, the Sandaime put the form he had just read, a request to turn some of the training fields into farmland, to one side. Naruto-kun. He said warmly, how was your first study session with Sakura-chan? I have a headache. Naruto pulled a face as he answered, we covered almost all of the battles between Shodaime-sama and Uchiha Madara, both pre-Konoha and after its founding, as well as some of the battles during the First Great Shinobi War. You have made some progress then? Sarutobi suggested. Yeah, but does learning things have to be so damn headache-inducing? Naruto groused. You aren't accustomed to absorbing that much information at once yet. Sarutobi informed his surrogate grandson, in time, you will become used to it. Now, what can I do for you? I wanted to ask about Yondaime-sama. Naruto replied, there's almost nothing in the textbooks about him, his jutsu or even what he was like as a person. Sarutobi frowned. That shouldn't be right. The textbook should have some information. All it has is his name, the name of his jutsu, a list and description of the battles he was in and the numbers and ranks of the missions he was on. Naruto informed him. I see, well then, what would you like to know about? Sarutobi asked as he mentally planned an investigation into the quality of the information being put into the textbooks. Well, what the heck are his jutsu? The Rasengan and the Hiraishin? Naruto asked, Supposedly, those two jutsu let Yondaime-sama kill 200 shinobi in one battle, but it doesn't say how. The Hiraishin is a time/space ninjutsu that allows the user to teleport to any place that has a special jutsushiki, jutsu formula, nearby. Sarutobi explained. Before the battle you are referring to happened, Minato seeded the area with his special Hiraishin Kunao, as well as hundreds of copies of jutsushiki. Combined with the Raiznon, which is a sealless jutsu that creates a orb of chakra in the palm of the user's hand that grinds an opponent grievously, Minato was able to teleport all over the battlefield and kill those 200 shinobi before they knew what was happening, turning the tide in the war against Uegakur. Wow, that's just, wow. Naruto was, for once, at a loss for words. Yes, that was my reaction when Minato told me about his plan for the battle. Hiruzen smiled wryly. That battle cemented his reputation as Konoha's Yellow Flash, as he always disappeared and reappeared in a flash of yellow light whenever he used the Hiraishin, as well as cementing his worthiness to succeed me as Hokage. Why? Naruto asked intently. Minato was a kind man. Sarutobi said with a soft smile as he thought back, very gentle and one who cared greatly, both for Konoha as a whole and for his fellow shinobi. He made that plan to use the Hiraishin on such an unprecedented scale because he wished to end the war quickly, before more of his comrades died in the fighting. He truly personified the will of fire, the code that we Konohagakuer shinobi live by and gives us a strength beyond chakra, beyond mere jutsu. He was, without question, one of the greatest shinobi it has ever been my pleasure to meet, which made his death 12 years ago an even greater tragedy. Naruto nodded. I wish I could have met him. He sounds like an awesome person. Sarutobi's heart twisted at this coming from a person who looked so much like Minato, and was in fact his son. Forcing a grandfatherly smile onto his face, Sarutobi said, he was. Minato did have his faults though. He was terrible at naming jutsu for example. The Hiraishin's original name was a convoluted thing that took about 2 minutes to say, the same applying to the Raiznon. He was also very dense when it came to the Ferrer Sax. Something you seem to have inherited from him, Naruto-kun. The old man chuckled mentally, knowing that the Hyuga heiress was head over heels for him, yet he just thought she was weird. Truly, like father, like son. Huh. Naruto nodded again absently. Well, that answers my questions. Thanks, Gigi. No problem, my boy. Sarutobi replied with a negligent wave of his hand. Oh, by the way, the Umbu have rounded up all of the people responsible for both of the vandalism attacks on your apartment. They'll be imprisoned for 2 years and they'll each also pay 100,000 ryo fine to you for damages caused and trauma suffered. I'll have the money given to you as soon as possible. I didn't suffer any trauma though, Gigi. Naruto pointed out, just irritation. Trauma, irritation, whatever. Sarutobi sniffed faux-noodly, making Naruto cackle at his Gigi pranking people legally. By the way Gigi, do you know any training fields I could use? Naruto asked. The academy staff don't let me use the field next to it unless it's a detention and I don't want to have to get detention just to be able to train. Sarutobi frowned in thought. Sadly, it was academy policy to refuse any clan shinobi the use of the academy's training field outside of classes, as they usually left it a mess, especially the Akimichi and the Uchiha, so there was nothing he could do there. However, yes, I believe I can help you there Naruto-kun. The Hokage nodded. Training Field 13 is free due to it being overrun with chakra mutations. Chakra what now? Naruto asked in confusion. Chakra mutations. Sarutobi explained patiently. All living beings have a natural reservoir of chakra that provides the eternal vitality of life. Due to Konoha being a shinobi village, the air is suffused with stray chakra from the casual use of jutsu by the shinobi residents, in the training fields especially. When a field becomes oversaturated with chakra, it starts to affect the animals, warping them into larger and meaner versions of their original forms. When this occurs, we seal off the field and send in teams of Chunin or even Genin to eliminate the mutations, then allow the land to lie fallow for a year or so before reopening it. So, you're going to let me use a field full of rabid monsters? Naruto asked in disbelief. Training Field 13 is fairly unique as it is divided up into various subsections by fences. Sarutobi replied, there are only so many mutations in each area. In addition, all of the so-called sub-areas within the training field hold weaker creatures the further out from the center of the field they are, so I would say you should be able to handle the first 3 sub-areas as you are right now. Cool. Naruto said with a grin, before he frowned. I only have Academy-ku now. Those things can't cut worth a damn. Catch. Sarutobi said, tossing a small pouch of real kunao at Naruto, who caught them easily. You should return any of them that you don't use tomorrow. Alright. Arigato, Gigi. Naruto beamed. See you tomorrow then. With that, the walking ball of energy that was Uzumaki Naruto bounced out of the office, strapping the holster to his leg as he walked. That boy always makes me feel drained after he visits me. Sarutobi chuckled as he picked up the form he had been reading before Naruto turned up. Now, what's this? Turn the training fields into farmland? Are they stupid? Denied. Not long afterwards. Training Field 13 entrance. Naruto stared up at the large gate that was the only way into the training field. It was rusted and looked like it could fall apart in a stiff breeze. Better tell Gigi about that. Naruto muttered before he remembered the windows that had popped up after he had ran from the Hokage's office. Congratulations. The 4th principal quest completed. You have acquired one piece of information regarding the Hiraishin and the 4th Hokage. Quest reward, plus 600 EXP, random jutsu scroll, see inventory, plus 250 reputation with. Bonus objective completed, acquire a piece of information regarding both of the trademark jutsu of the Yondaime. Bonus objective reward, plus 200 EXP, basic Fuinjutsu scroll. Nice. Naruto cheered. Wait, this means your level has gone up by 1. Level 5 to level 6. You have 5 attribute points to spend. Naruto knew exactly what he was going to do with the 5 new points. He opened up his status window and added all 5 points into Dex, putting him up to 19. Satisfied with this, he then turned his attention to his inventory and pulled out the Jutsu scroll he had received as a reward for the 4th principal quest. You have received the Doton, Gansitsukan no Jutsu scroll. Do you wish to learn this? Y/N. Alright. A jutsu for my earth clones to use. Naruto cheered as he pushed the Y button, absorbing the scroll and learning the technique. Doton, Gansitsukan no Jutsu, active, LV1, 00.00 EXP. The Earth Style, Rock Section Cane Jutsu is a fairly simple technique. After making the correct hand signs, the user should pick up a stone or rock, which transforms it into a 1.5 meter long staff, which can be used in close combat or thrown at the enemy. At high levels, the user can create multiple staves simultaneously and assail their enemies with them. Hand signs, monkey rat snake. Number of staves created per use, 1. Durability of each stave, 20. Nice. Let's give it a test run. Naruto grinned as he ran through the 3 hand signs, Doton, Gansitsukan no Jutsu. He then picked up a rock that was coincidentally lying at the side of the path and was shocked at the speed at which it shot out to a full 1.5 meter long stone staff. Giving it an experimental twirl, Naruto noted absently that it was perfectly balanced. Observe, he said as he looked at the staff intently. Gansitsukan. A stone staff created by the Gansitsukan no Jutsu, it is moderately resilient to damage. Can be used as an improvised thrown weapon with an accuracy penalty, -5. Staff. Limited durability points, LDP 20/20ths. What the heck is limited durability? Naruto pondered, then rolled his eyes as another window popped up. Limited durability. Unlike with regular weapons, those created by chakra generally do not last very long. The time remaining for a weapon created via a jutsu is determined by its LDP. The higher the LDP is, the longer such weapons will last. LDP will decrease gradually over time and will fall sharply when used for combat purposes. Okay, well that answers that. Naruto muttered. Next. He removed one of the kunao Sarutobi had given him and used observe on it. Standard kunao. A basic kunao used by the shinobi forces of Konohagakure no Sato. It is capable of being thrown and used in close combat with equal ease, although it is more suited to close combat than being thrown. Thrown weapon. LV5. Thrown damage, 9. Close combat damage, 12. Durability, 40/40ths. Nodding, Naruto slid the weapon back into his holster and re-examined the Gansitsukan, discovering it was down to 18 LDP already. Deciding that he would throw it at the first chakra mutation he saw, Naruto strode towards the gate into the training ground, only stopping when yet another window popped up. Field Dungeon. Welcome to Training Ground 13, also known as the Forest of Silent Contemplation. This is your first time entering a field dungeon. Do you wish to receive a basic tutorial about field dungeons? Y/N. Why not? Naruto shrugged, hitting Y almost lazily. Field Dungeon Tutorial. A field dungeon is one of the 2 main dungeon types. A dungeon is an area where you can encounter enemies via random encounters, as well as loot via enemy drops and treasure chests. Field dungeons are situated in open areas, such as light forests, grassland, and plains. Enemies include chakra mutations, bandits, and the occasional nukenin. Often a good location for beginners. Regular dungeons are situated within buildings, caves, heavy forests and ruins. Powerful and ancient enemies can be found here, depending on the level of the dungeon. Do not enter a regular dungeon unless you are of the appropriate level. Every dungeon, field, or regular, has a minimum level requirement before you can enter it. Training Field 13, Area 1, has the level requirement of LV5+, so anyone who is level 5 or above can enter it. Area 2 is LV6+, and Area 3 is LV7+, so on and so forth. Field dungeons tend to have twisting paths that can be confusing, so a map is available in your inventory once you step into the dungeon so you can track your current location and where you have been. All field dungeons have a field boss. The exact circumstances upon which a field boss will appear can vary greatly. Sometimes you must defeat a specific enemy in order to make it appear. Other times it is by solving a puzzle or killing a set number of enemies. The most usual manner, however, is to reach the boss area. A field boss is the most powerful enemy in the maze and will often be difficult to defeat. If you defeat them, however, the prizes you receive will very much make up for all of the effort. Good luck. Naruto shook his head as his headache made a sudden resurgence at this deluge of information. He really needed to get used to this kind of thing soon, otherwise he'd have a headache all the time. Doing a last-minute check of his kunao and shuriken, Naruto decided to ignore the basic Fuinjutsu scroll, as he wouldn't be able to use it in the training ground. Let's get going, he declared aloud and walked over to the gate and reached out his hand to touch it, causing another window to pop open. Training Area 13. Which area do you wish to enter? Area 1, LV5+. Area 2, LV6+. Area 3, LV7+. Area 4, LV8+. Area 5, LV9+. Area 6, LV10+. Area 7, LV12+. Area 8, LV13+. Area 9, LV14+. Area 10, LV15+. Area 11, LV17+. Area 12, LV18+. Area 13, LV20+. So, there were 13 areas in Training Ground 13, each being more difficult than the last, with the levels jumping slightly higher from Area 6 to Area 7, Area 10 to Area 11 and Area 12 to Area 13. These are the minimum required levels for the different areas. Naruto considered carefully. I think I'll want to be a couple of levels higher for anything above Area 6, just to be on the safe side. Putting the higher levels to one side, Naruto carefully pressed the button indicating Area 1 and waited. The window vanished and the rusty gate creaked open ominously, listing slightly now that it was open. Swallowing slightly, Naruto walked through the gate, stone staff held at the ready. As soon as he cleared the gate, it swung shut behind him with a metallic groan. I hate dramatic and ominous ambience, Naruto grumbled as he looked around. Area 1 seemed to be just a continuation of the landscape outside the fence, which wasn't really much of a surprise. Randomly picking a direction, Naruto started moving cautiously through the trees, keeping an eye out for enemies. He recalled that, thanks to his Benton's Blessing perk, he would have no shortage of enemy encounters, so he was first surprised, then irritated when 5 minutes passed without a single enemy showing up. He was getting a bit pissed at that point, when he spotted a chest partially concealed inside a hollow tree stump, which automatically made him suspicious. This situation positively screamed trap. Seeing no large clumps of undergrowth for any enemies to hide in nearby, Naruto was stumped as to how they could ambush him. Trapdoors, maybe? Shrugging, the blonde shinobi in training decided to go the bold route this time. He walked straight up to the chest and was rewarded by a pair of windows popping up in front of him. Ambush. You have been ambushed from behind by 3 chakra mutated squirrels. Which was immediately followed by another one. Bloodthirst detected? Immediately behind you? Naruto leapt into the air, somersaulting over his enemies, which were indeed squirrels, but not like any he had ever seen before. These ones were the size of house cats, their buck teeth sharpened to a point and their claws tearing furrows into the soft topsoil as they skidded to a halt. Landing on the ground, he looked at the titles floating above the mutated beasts' heads. LV4 Rabid Red Squirrel. So, 2 levels below him. An excellent chance to see how he stacked up compared to them. With a grin, Naruto spun the staff in his hands lazily before throwing at the nearest squirrel like a javelin, impaling it before the beast knew to dodge, making it shriek. The other 2 ignored their injured companion and immediately leapt to the attack. Naruto, however, hadn't been idle while the staff had been in midair. Hiko Yoshin Shuriken Jutsu. Naruto muttered as he sent a handful of Academy Shuriken flying at the 2 squirrels. One dodged the throwing stars, but the other one took the full brunt of the barrage, slumping to the ground with 2 in its body and a 3rd in its eye. Swiftly drawing a kunao, Naruto neatly sidestepped the charging squirrel and stabbed it in the back of the head. Much to his surprise, the chakra mutant just snarled and swiped at his hand with its claws. Let's try that again, Naruto said with a frown. He attacked this time, stabbing the kunao into the squirrel's neck, making the mutant die at last. He then noticed the 3 windows pop up over the corpses of the rabid red squirrels. Rabid red squirrel defeated? You gain 40 EXP. After he closed the windows, the bodies of the squirrels dissolved into blue light, leaving behind stuff. When the tutorial had mentioned enemy drops regarding loot, Naruto had expected skins, teeth and the like. Instead, there were 3 neat piles of Ryo notes and a single scroll. Dumbfounded, Naruto picked up one of the notes and compared it to one he drew from his Gama-chan wallet. The two were alike, with just enough differentiation between them to see that the one from the monster drop was freshly printed. Hurriedly picking up the notes, 500 Ryo, and putting them into Gama-chan, he then turned his attention to the scroll. It turned out to be something called a crafting recipe for a spider silk underlay armor. Naruto didn't have the faintest idea what it was talking about, so he put the scroll in his inventory until he could figure out exactly what it was for. The chest contained a silver key called Grand Chest Key Number 1, which was not exactly what Naruto was hoping for. He had kind of wanted a sword or even some armor, but he reminded himself that this was just the first bite at the apple. Over the next half hour or so, Naruto discovered the theme of the area was to search out treasure chests, get ambushed by either rabid red squirrels or gnashing gray squirrels, the later of which were level 5 and were more dogged in their attack than their red counterparts, and then take the treasure. He didn't get any more recipes, just money, always welcome, and the occasional cured squirrel fur, of which he wasn't certain what he was going to do with. The chests were a little better, but mostly contained keys for the grand chest, whatever that was, and a bit of extra cash. Currently, Naruto was sat down and taking a break, examining the map of the area as he did so. It looked hand-drawn, with the locations he had discovered chest marked with a star. Currently, he had 4 keys and the map showed that they were in a sort of square position, with 2 of them closer together than the other 2. Could a 5th one be here somewhere? Naruto mused aloud, pointing at a place located upwards and in the center of the 2 key locations furthest apart and across from one another. If one was in that area, that made a pentagram, meaning that the grand chest might appear in the center somewhere, probably along with the field boss. Naruto checked himself over before heading out. Thus far, he hadn't lost much HP, just about 30 points to a surprise attack from a gnashing gray squirrel that popped up when he thought he'd dealt with all of them, and he'd already regenerated that health while resting, so he was good. He hadn't even had to use any of his jutsu, not since that first Gansutsukan, but he knew he'd likely have to use jutsu against the field boss when it turned up. 5 minutes and 5 dead squirrels later, Naruto was removing a key from the last chest, along with a rather odd item to keep in a chest, the blue and white wrapped hilt of a tanto, with part of the blade still attached, but very obviously damaged. It looked like someone had smashed the blade with a hammer or something. Hilt of Toradora. The hilt of the tanto known as Toradora. The blade has been broken, but perhaps not beyond repair by a skilled smith, was what his observed skill said about it. Naruto waited for a moment and, sure enough, a quest window popped up a couple of seconds later. Quest created. A broken blade can still cut. You have discovered the hilt and what little is left of a tanto called Toradora. Take it to your friend Tenten to see if it can be fixed. Accept. Y/N. Naruto stared at the window, slightly perplexed. This was odd. There was no quest succeed/quest failure notices listed. Shrugging, the blonde boy hit Y before placing the hilt and the last key in his inventory and heading to the center of the pentagram formed by the chest locations. This had better be worth it. He grumbled as he picked up a rock so he would be able to use Gansutsukan as soon as he spotted the field boss. Thus far, his Shuriken Jutsu, Hiko Yoshin fast draw technique and beginner's Heikage Taijutsu had all gone up by a couple of levels, so this time he would try and level up his Doton Ninjutsu. He really had to start trying to find some jutsu for his primary futon affinity though. Abruptly, the ground started to shake. Naruto yelped in surprise as he staggered against a nearby tree and looked around for the cause of the earthquake. A large tree erupted from beneath the ground, with an extra large chakra mutated squirrel clinging to the top of it, with a pair of gnashing gray squirrels at its flank. So this is a field boss. Naruto mused as he looked up at the monster. It was the size of a Labrador, twice the size of the gnashing gray squirrels. It had burnt orange fur and you could see the rippling muscles beneath it. Naruto checked out the name floating above its head. LV7 Berserk Fox Squirrel. Observe, Naruto whispered. Berserk Fox Squirrel. This beast was infected with a tiny dose of the chakra of the Kyubi no Kitsune during its attack 12 years ago and has grown to monstrous proportions. With no sense of self-preservation, it will attack innocent people until it is dead. Special status, Berserk, feel no pain, iron muscles. Special abilities, summon minions. Naruto paled as he read on. This thing was using the chakra of the demon fox? If it wasn't stopped, it could hurt people. Like him? He hurriedly examined the 4 unknown buttons. Berserk, passive/active. You are a fierce warrior, lost in a sea of rage and fury. You are granted enhanced strength, endurance, and speed at the cost of your sanity and self-preservation instincts. Passively grants plus 15 STR. Passively grants plus 15 SPD. Passively grants plus 15 STA. Passively reduces int by 15. Passively reduces dex by 10. Actively forces you to attack the nearest foe and attack it until it is dead. Actively reduces WIS by 15. Costs 50 CP per minute. Feel no pain, passive. Through either pure mental control or sheer rage, you are immune to pain and can tank the strongest of attacks without flinching. Passively raises STA by 30. Passively renders user immune to the sensation of physical pain. Iron muscles, passive. You have trained extensively, to the point that your muscles are so large and thick that they act as light armor when in combat, albeit to the detriment of your speed. Passively reduces speed by 10. Passively grants an armor value of 10 to all locations except the head. Passively increases STR by 15. Summon minions, active. Letting loose a howl, you can summon subordinates to your aid. Actively summons forth either 2 to 3 rabid red squirrels or 2 gnashing gray squirrels to your aid. Cooldown, 3 minutes. Costs 30 CP to use. Naruto let loose a string of eloquent expletives at this information. He knew that a field boss would be hard, but throwing the chakra of the Kyubi no Kitsune into the mix apparently upped the difficulty level somewhat. Shit. Well, nothing to it but to do it. Naruto said determinedly as he ran through some hand signs. Doton, Iwa Bunshin no Jetsu. This time, rather than upchucking a rock, Naruto used the earth around him to form the rock clones, 10 of them altogether. Right as the last of them formed, the tree that the boss stood on stopped rising. The berserk fox squirrel let out a high-pitched shriek that set Naruto's teeth on edge and hurt his poor eardrums. 3 rabid red squirrels bounded from other trees and climbed up in front of the field boss, keening and chattering before they all glared at Naruto and his rock clones. Use the Gansitsukan no Jutsu. Naruto ordered swiftly, 5 of you keep the minions busy, the other 5 will be with me and attack the boss. Doton, Gansitsukan no Jutsu, was the only reply he heard, so Naruto hurriedly used it himself. It was interesting to note that the Iwa Bunshin didn't need a rock in their hands to use the rock section Kane Jutsu, which made sense as they were made of rock themselves. The boss snarled and the 5 minion squirrels leapt acrobatically to the attack, hopping down branches before launching themselves towards Naruto. 3 thrown Gansitsukan intercepted them, killing one and seriously injuring another, while the rest were forced to scramble to land and dodge the 2 Iwa Bunshin who hadn't thrown their staves. Meanwhile, the berserk fox squirrel wasn't sitting idle. It leapt straight towards Naruto from where it had clutched the top of the tree, a drop of what had to be at least 2 stories. Scatter. Naruto ordered his clones as he leapt to one side, smacking a nearby squirrel on the head with a swipe of his staff as he did so. The clones barely got out of the way before the Labrador-sized chakra mutant slammed onto the ground, kicking up a small dust cloud. Before Naruto or the clones could react, it screeched again and lashed out with its tail and claws, smashing 2 Iwa Bunshin in seconds. Kuso. Naruto cursed, attack. Don't let it have the time to do anything but defend and dodge. He led by example, stabbing at the snarling monster with his staff, only to be surprised when the squirrel caught it in its teeth and bit down, shattering the stone like rotten wood. His Iwa Bunshin took advantage of Naruto's distraction to stab and smash at the field boss with their staves, while the original Naruto drew a pair of kunao and started slashing and stabbing with them, making the oversized squirrel scream in fury, although it didn't cease its attacks in the slightest. It took another half-hour to wear down the berserk fox squirrel. Naruto had to use the Iwa Bunshin no Jutsu at least 4 more times as the dim field boss kept summoning minions to try and overwhelm him and his Bunshin squad, wearing them down and making them crumble into piles of rocks. Not to mention draining his CP like crazy, but thankfully his CP seemed to regenerate fairly quickly. Now though, the large squirrel was clearly on its last legs, panting hard, with great rents in its fur and flesh, with blood pouring from its many wounds and from its right eye socket, which Naruto had taken out with a lucky throw of a shuriken. Will you just die already, you overgrown stuffed toy? Naruto shouted in frustration as yet another Iwa Bunshin crumbled into rock as a result of a rather strong bite. The berserk fox squirrel roared again as Naruto stabbed it in the side again. Then, an odd red chakra seemed to burst out of the body of the squirrel, covering it entirely and making it look even more feral than it had been previously. What the holy dash? One clone exclaimed, "Boss, this looks bad." "Yeah, think." Naruto snarked back, less talking, more attacking. With a roar, the clones threw a barrage of Gansitsukan at the monster, but it moved much faster than before, dodging the stone staves with ease and launching a blistering counterattack. Naruto noted somewhat absently that the injuries suffered by the clones were like being gutted by a claw made of lava and decided that getting hit by that was not something he wanted to experience. So, when the last Iwa Bunshin crumbled to pieces, Naruto was quick to make another full set of clones, which used their staves as a temporary way of holding the rabid squirrel off while other clones attacked. Seeing it slump slightly, Naruto charged at the beast with a kunao drawn and ready. The field boss snarled again before staggering up to try and attack him. Not gonna work. Naruto shouted, "You can't beat me, you know why?" He avoided the rather feeble swipe of the claws and drove the kunai into the monster's neck right up to the hilt, causing blood to spurt from the now gaping maw of the beast. "Because I'm gonna be Hokage one day, Databia," Naruto finished grimly, "so I can't lose to the likes of you." With one final ear-piercing scream, the field boss collapsed onto the ground with a loud thump, causing a loud chime to go off and a large window to appear in front of Naruto. Rabid Red Squirrel X12 defeated. You gain 480 EXP. Gnashing Grey Squirrel X8 defeated. You gain 360 EXP. Field Boss Berserk Fox Squirrel defeated. You gain 600 EXP. HP and CP fully restored. Yada. Naruto cheered. "Oh, what's this below that?" Beginner's Hokage Taijutsu has leveled up. LV4, LV5. As a result of repeated actions, the skill Self-Taught Bajutsu has been created. Self-Taught Bajutsu, passive/active, LV1, 00.00 EXP. Bajutsu is the use of the bow staff in combat. While most people use preset styles in order to fight with it, you have created a style all of your own. Nowhere near effective compared to a regular Bajutsu style, this will nevertheless keep you from tripping yourself up over your own feet while using a bow. Passively raises STR by 1%. Passively raises Dex by 2%. Actively raises damage dealt by any staff weapon by 5%. Doton, IWA Bunshin no Jutsu has leveled up. LV1, LV2. Doton, Gansutsukan no Jutsu has leveled up. LV1, LV2. Shuriken Jutsu has leveled up. LV5, LV6. Secondary Earth Affinity has leveled up. LV1, LV2. I'm really getting stronger. Naruto muttered in awe. "Oh, right, better grab the loot." In addition to the usual Ryo and occasional cured squirrel furs, Naruto picked up another crafting recipe, this time for a squirrel fur vest, which explained why he kept getting these pesky furs. The big paycheck was found where the carcass of the berserk fox squirrel had been. Not only was there a hefty chunk of change, 3,000 Ryo, there was also a extra large cured squirrel fur, as well as a Jutsu scroll. You have received the Futon, Kaiten Shuriken no Jutsu scroll. Would you like to learn this? Y/N. At last. Naruto grinned and hit Y, letting the Jutsu scroll dissolve into blue light and sink into him. Futon, Kaiten Shuriken no Jutsu, active, LV1, 00.00 EXP. The wind style, rotating Shuriken Jutsu is a useful jutsu for increasing the effectiveness of your Shuriken Jutsu. By infusing a Shuriken with wind-natured chakra, you increase its cutting power. Once a Shuriken has been infused, you can manipulate the Shuriken to attack your opponents remotely. Actively increases the damage of any infused blade weapon by 10. Actively allows you to control the infused weapon up to 4 meters away. Hand signs, none. Number of weapons that can be infused and manipulated, 2. Costs 25 CP per weapon, per minute. Kick-ass, no damn hand signs. Naruto cheered, before looking around with a frown. Now where's that damn grand chest thingy? As if waiting for him to ask that question, the tree that the field boss had made its entrance on split in two and fell neatly apart, revealing a pair of shinobi sandals? What the hell? Naruto groaned before stomping up to look at them. They were a deep royal blue color with black designs around the ankle that Naruto had to admit were pretty cool looking. "Observe," he muttered. "Custom battle sandals, blue. Standard issue sandals used by all members of the Konohagakure shinobi forces. This pair has been customized for training the tree climbing skill, granting an additional 10% EXP when practicing the exercise. Def plus 10. Durability, 50/50ths. Nice, but not what I was looking for," Naruto remarked as he picked them up and put them in his inventory. A note was lying on the floor. "To the shinobi who defeated the fox squirrel. My compliments. You have passed the first hurdle, but do not become complacent. Many harder tasks await you in the other areas. If you wish to open the grand chest, you must gather not only the 5 keys currently in your possession, but the chakra pass from Area 6 to allow you entry to the room in which it is kept. And the chest, await you in Area 13. The Forest Lord. Who the hell is this Forest Lord guy?" Naruto moaned. "Well, no use standing around like an idiot. On to the next area." With that, Naruto charged off to the exit of the area, leaving the note to fade into dust behind him. Next chapter, Tiger and Dragon.